Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, we have Mr. Connor Drigotas, works as the managing editor of the Connecticut Inside Investigator, an investigative journalist outlet holding the power to account. We like people like that. All right. Thank you, sir. Good to have you on the show, Connor. How are you?
Life is good. It's great to meet you. You're looking sharp as always.
Well, I'm trying to be like you, dear brother. All right. Let's talk about this, man. Government shutdown almost happened. Matt Gaetz obviously thought he could take McCarthy out. It looks like he's headed out himself potentially. Karl Rove was posed the question on Fox News, hey, why do people keep blaming Republicans for these things? And Karl Rove said, because typically it's their fault. What is your reading of the current 45-day extension and how this is playing out politically for Democrats and Republicans?
Well, I mean, I think the most important thing is always to remember as citizens that the ball is in our court. We get to decide how this plays out, right? We don't want to leave the control in Washington, D.C. to decide what happens next. Power should reside with the people. That being said, there was a lot of different elements that I think we need to be aware of right up front. Of course, this package dropped the aid to Ukraine. This was a White House priority, but it also increased federal disaster assistance by $16 billion, which was exactly what Biden was asking for. So Republicans and Democrats, they're going to be at each other's throats in the media, but I think all of us would be wise to take a step back and really acknowledge that this is one big club. We ain't in it, and we need to keep our heads about us so we aren't losing the forest in the trees here.
You know, I think you make a compelling point, a point I make often. They will basically create a cultural storm in the media and debate about it, continually debate about it, while voting the same way on economy, voting the same way on banks, voting the same way on higher education. But they will seem polar opposite in the media battles, but that's really the minority of disagreement. The majority of things, they're still voting the same way on, which typically is actually adverse to our best interest. So when you look at some of the spending, right? You're dropping the aid to Ukraine, you're increasing some of the domestic spending for aid. But let me ask you the question about the affiliation of Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz, he says he's against it in principle because we continue to pass these bills that continue to increase the deficit and the budget. But no one was saying any of this when Trump was raising the deficit, increasing the budget, increasing spending. And the truth is, all presidents have their, let's just say, biases when it comes to what they would like to fund and defund. So why do you think Gaetz is all of a sudden acting as if he truly gives a damn about fiscal conservatism?
You know, I used to teach business communications at Lehigh University as an adjunct. And one time I had a student come to me, I'd given him a C on a paper. And he said, you know, I spent 10 hours on this thing. I deserve an A. I want to be graded based on my effort, not on my results. And I looked at him and I'd say the exact same thing to Matt here, which is that talk is really cheap. But when it comes down to it, you have to put your best foot forward, and it's your actions that you are responsible for at the end of the day. And I think that could be said of a lot of different representatives, senators, the president, and a huge number of folks in the administrative state after this weekend. Your actions speak louder than your words ever could.
You know, the federal government is the largest employer of single employer of Black people in America. And obviously a shutdown adversely impacts a lot of people, and by extension, kind of adversely impacts everybody, right? I wonder, how did Matt Gaetz and a couple of others think this would play out when you really don't have either of the political parties having an appetite to shut down the government? There are times when they seem to have that appetite. This did not seem to be the political narrative for this one, but they seem to be out of touch. What say you to that?
Well, first and foremost, I think you have to have compassion, right? Politics, you know, the government doesn't do anything. Collectives can't act independently. There's no such thing as an independent collective. So at the end of the day, this is all human beings who are doing things. And downstream of that is that there's a very real human effect of all the different decisions that are made on Capitol Hill. So I feel for all of the people who work in the federal government who would have been negatively impacted by this. And certainly the media did not hold back on making that point again and again and again. I think, referencing the trash collector in the offices and the librarian and the cafeteria worker. But at the end of the day, each of us makes decisions about where we're going to work. And quite frankly, the federal government right now is a company that's not providing value. Now, I can easily say no to Google. I cannot buy from Amazon. Heck, even Twitter, I could just say, I'm done with it, as so many people do. But if I try to say no to the federal government, there's going to be a huge problem. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. I have the question of why these people at all levels of government are working for an organization that, according to Brown University, has killed 387,000 civilians since 2001. Yes, we need accountability at the top from people who are making decisions, but quite frankly, at every level of governance and also among citizenry, we need individuals who are going to stand up for the right decision, the moral decision, and say enough is enough.
Here's how I think you solve it. And I agree with your sentiment. Enough is enough. This is insane. Here's how you solve it. I want to get your response on record. When the government shuts down, make sure that everybody else's paycheck is tied into the paychecks that the members of Congress get. That everybody else's benefits are tied into the benefits that the member of Congress gets. That means that when the government shuts down, members of Congress who only have one true job based on Constitution, and that's to pass a budget, that the members of Congress, when they cannot do their jobs, they don't get paid any money. Now, I think you'll have a whole lot less government shutdowns if you connect all of their money to all of our money.
I think that's a great point. And I think it's a first step, right? I think accountability is definitely the end of the road. That's where we want to see everything headed. Personally, I'm of the opinion that congressmen should not be paid. I don't think that if you're going to be a public servant, you should be there for the right reasons. And yesterday, believe it or not, there were individuals calling for a raise for Congress because of the fact that they haven't gotten a raise since 2009. I think that's preposterous. And just one other brief point, because again, recognizing that this isn't just the people who are sitting in Congress, it's the folks who are in each of these different administrations. There was actually a speech made about the plight of the ATF agent being put out of business. And I'm sorry, but the IRS spent $1.2 million on ballistic shields in 2020, $463,000 on tactical shotguns. And guess what? As soon as people do start to get frustrated about their money being taken out of their paycheck at a high rate, it's really frustrating to know that we're financing the tools to hold us violently accountable on the other side. Huge point of frustration. And I think that needs to be addressed very, very quickly.
Man, you and I agree on about 95% of everything you've said on the show. I appreciate your leadership, man. We'll definitely have you back on the program, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.